Welcome to the Probate Podcast, where we talk about all the things you didn't know you need to know about probate. My name is Sherry Lund, and I'm so glad that you're here. I want you to understand the process and to know what to expect because it's going to make things easier and it's going to save you money. And I'm here to show you how. Hi there, my name is Sherry Lund, and we're back at the Probate Podcast. Today, I'm excited to have Marc Harris as my guest. He is the owner of Probate Cash, and I'm excited to introduce you to him. I've gotten to know Marc a little bit in the past couple of weeks, and I've known about him for some time now. So I just am so excited for you to get to know who he is and what he does and to learn about it here on the Probate Podcast. Marc, thank you for joining me today.
Well, hi, Sherry, and thanks for having me today. Really looking forward to our chat.
So Marc is an attorney. He was admitted to the Florida Bar in the Southern District of Florida. He's a member of the Florida Bar's Real Property, Probate, and Trust Law section. And Marc has been working in the specialty finance industry for 25 years. He's involved in purchasing over $100 million of assets. Most of the purchases pursuant to various state laws required court hearings, and Marc attended many of those or appeared as counsel. He's the CEO of Probate Cash and now spearheading a relatively new industry of purchasing interests in actively pending inheritance claims for estates and trusts. That's a mouthful to say.
That is.
Marc, if I met you at the park, let's say you're in Florida, I'm in Texas, it's 125 degrees outside. Let's go to a park in Colorado and we're hiking and we're enjoying the cool weather. And I bump into you on the trail and we get into a conversation. Tell me a little about you as a person, Marc.
Well, first I'd probably ask you if I could have a sip of your water because I don't always prepare for hikes as well as I prepare for hikes. But yeah, if I were alone, it would be a nice break from my family if I was at the park. So I'm married and I have 2 children who are in that wonderful area that they're not quite adults, but they think they are until they have bills to pay, in which time I get that honor. I have a son who is in law school and a daughter who is a senior at Florida State University, who thankfully is probably not going the way of law. My wife is a lawyer who I met at a wedding many years ago. So she practices family law. And my educational background, I went to Florida State University for undergrad as well. And I do enjoy sports. And in fact, when I was in college, I did sports broadcasting. I had my own Bobby Bowden show on the radio. So Bobby Bowden was the long-term coach at Florida State, who was quite the personality and really put the school and Tallahassee on the map with this football program.
Have you always been interested in law?
For the most part, yeah. When I was a kid, I got the privilege of being a page for the Florida House of Representatives and the state Senate. I think for career day in high school, I shadowed a judge. Tallahassee is the state capital. So growing up, we always got to see the legislature in session. And it was that great energy that was there and to get to see how laws are made and how they're being interpreted by the courts. So yeah, I've always been fascinated by the law. I think that's what makes the United States very unique is our legal system. Mm-hmm. And the judiciary here is what separates our country from much of the world. It's why people invest money in the United States because they can count on what is eventually should be a non-biased legal system to protect folks no matter where they're from by just following the law.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Tell me a little bit about Probate Cash. And I'm curious about how you got started in that, how you went from law to Probate Cash.
So Probate Cash, let's start with what Probate Cash does. We provide beneficiaries of estates. So estates meaning where somebody has passed away and the estate is opened up and filed in probate court. And so beneficiaries of those estates don't get paid their inheritance until after the probate process has been completed. That's a long time. And, even in the best of situations, it can be a year. If it's not a great situation, it can be significantly longer. So What we saw were beneficiaries of estates who thought they were going to receive their inheritance soon after a loved one had passed away, realizes, hey, I'm not going to be getting my inheritance for a long time. And they didn't have anybody who could help them survive whatever financial issues they were going through over the many months, if not years, until the estate assets are distributed by order of the probate. So I did some criminal law, I did some civil law, I did a lot of different things. but I took a job with a company that purchased lottery prize payments. So back in the late 90s and 2000 decade, the first decade of the 2000s, if you won a state lottery, it was paid to you over 20 years, 30 years. It was not a lump sum paid to you. And I worked for a company that specialized in that and paying lottery winners a lump sum up front in exchange for the future cash flow payments. So someone once won, for instance, a $1 million prize, they would get $50,000 a year gross over 20 years. Not a lot of money when you start thinking about it, but we could offer them a lump sum for all of those future cash flows. So they had a much more significant amount up front and be able to use that money to buy a house, invest, whatever it was, but at least they had a real amount of money. So I worked in that business as a general counsel for a few different companies that purchased lottery prize payments and then structured settlement payment rights. Very similar. Somebody gets into an accident. Sometimes those are settled and insurance companies pay over time. And those required court approval for somebody to sell those future cash flows. So I'd go to court quite a bit around the country. I was on a plane one day and met a sports agent, and he represented a lot of baseball and basketball players. And I told him what I did with buying lottery prize payments and structured settlement cash flows. And he said, wow, my players get paid in these contracts over a period of time. And during the off season, they don't get paid. Can you advance money to them during the off season until they get paid the next year? And so we got into that business as well. The business itself is called factoring. And so you say, all right, anytime that somebody has money due to them over time, and if they want a lump sum today, we can offer that lump sum today, provided there's a mechanism for us to make sure we're going to get paid the money due over time. And so in the lottery transactions, the structured settlement transactions, we would go to court and get court orders directing the state lottery or an insurance company to make the payments to us directly. And there'd be a court hearing involved in that. Everything I've been involved has been very paternal in that the laws designed, courts designed to make sure that our customer is protected, not just from us, but from themselves, and they're making good decisions. That was my background for many years. Probate Cash was a similar situation. And this just seemed like a very natural area to come into as people needed money and they couldn't wait. And we know the probate process, and it is a much more riskier business than the other businesses that I've been in, because we can get into the actual process of probate. There is no guarantee we're going to get repaid at the end of the day. Whereas for lottery prize payments or settlements, that money was already there. It was just collecting it. But in the probate process, it is much different. So that became a natural transition of some of the other businesses. And now we're very excited to help people. And we do business in every state in the country. And the most exciting part is that most people that we talk to never knew that our service existed.
Probate is mysterious. We don't talk about it. There's very few books about it. This whole end of life transition is kind of taboo for a lot of people. And then when we get in it, if we're a beneficiary, what are some of the things that people need to pay off before the beneficiaries get their money when probate is all said and done?
When we say they, it's really the decedent, right? The person who passed away.
That's true.
Passes away and they have debts, which is normal. Most people pass away and they have debts. So the whole probate process is designed to make sure that there are a few reasons why the probate process is designed. One of them is to make sure that the decedent's creditors have an opportunity to still get paid money that the decedent promised to pay them. Their contracts, or there could be Medicaid issues, there could be end-of-life hospital bills, hospice. So there could be large amounts of money there that medical providers can file a claim. So someone passes away. A lot of people who come to see us or come see probate lawyers probably first talked to somebody like you, Sherry, a realtor, or they may have gone to the bank. So they went to go to the bank to say, all right, my mom passed away. I want to be able to withdraw the money that was in her bank account. Or I want to sell the property now. My mom's passed away. I want to sell the property. And so they go to the bank. The bank says, well, can I see your letters testamentary? They say, what are you talking about? Or they've never heard of that. And same thing with selling a house. Like, you can't list the house unless you have the letters. And so immediately the banker or you tell them, well, you need to open up a probate, and a judge needs to issue you the letters testamentary that give you the legal authority to act on behalf of the estate. And so that's the first time that a lot of people ever heard of probate. So then they call up the probate attorney, and a lot of these folks have no money, and they're calling up the probate attorney saying, "Hey, I need my letters, whatever that means. My mom died 2 months ago and I need to figure out how to get the money." And so that begins the process. And the first thing a lawyer usually will ask is, well, did your mom have a will? Yes or no? And so if there's a will, the will is filed with the court. So when the probate case is opened up, you have proof that the person passed away. You then file a will or no will. If it's not a will, you say they passed away, what's called intestate. And there's rules that apply if somebody passes away without a will. Then everybody, when I say everybody, family members, people get notice of the person that passed away. There may be a will. And if there's a will, was it properly executed? Did everybody know about that will? Does somebody think that that will is not a legitimate will? Well, this probate process gives everyone an opportunity to challenge it, to review it, or to say, okay, the will is good. This is mom's will, but we don't see anything wrong with it. Or they may not like the will, but the will still could be proper, right? It's okay not to leave money to your loved ones, as we all know. So then there's that issue. Then there's called the claims period, and that gives the creditors of the decedent an opportunity to then file claims against the estate. And that claims period, depending upon what state you live in, can be 3 months to 9 months. Even if it's an easy estate, meaning that there's no internal bickering between family members, you still have a statutory, a legal period of time that must be completed before you can even move on to the next steps. And so if somebody files claims, that doesn't mean that their claims are automatically honored. A judge will then determine whether their claims are valid under the probate law and whether they'll get paid out of the estate assets. And part of also the probate is you have to disclose what are the estate assets. And now that somebody has the letters testamentary, they can go access the bank account and say, hey, there's $100,000 in this Bank of America account. The property that has to be sold is worth $400,000. Mom always told me there's a Mona Lisa in the attic and I found it. So that's got to be worth $3 million, right? And rarely is it the actual Mona Lisa. Yeah, there's that process that must play out. So it's a very long process that must be done, and which makes it very complicated is, as you just pointed out, in this country, death is taboo. We don't even like thinking about our own deaths. And so as a result, there's not a lot of estate planning that goes on. There's sometimes not a will because nobody wants to think about their own death, their own mortality. They're not buying a funeral plot for themselves because that's too close to home, right? So when you have that mindset, what happens when you finally pass away is a mess ensues. They also, which is taboo, is when someone's passed away, is I don't want to talk about the money. I should be mourning my mom's passing, and talking about the money is declared to be rude.
You know, as you're talking about that, what I'm hearing on several fronts is conflict. But our life doesn't stop because probate begins. And so to have to deal with all of this extra interruption and stuff on top of grief, we're also angry at mom because she left us in this mess. And the Mona Lisa, for Pete's sake, is just a print. You know, it's not even worth anything, the paper that it's printed on. So just the conflict that's there. The attorneys are not free. So when we go to submit that, to get the letters, to get all this started, the attorney wants in advance. You know, they want retainer, right? And then there's the medical bills and stuff. There's the mortgage for mom's house. If there's a mortgage, there's HOA dues in Texas. The HOA can foreclose if the HOA dues are not caught up, the taxes. For people that are business owners that made these offers in good faith, say the roofer that still expects to get paid, there's nothing against the roofer to expect to get paid because mom said she would pay him for the roof that he put on her house. So it doesn't make the roofer a bad person. It's a deal that mom made with the roofer, right?
Sure. And when you're trying to make those decisions, he said, when you're grieving, you're not always thinking clearly. And now suddenly you're not thinking clearly and you have a pile of debt. You need to sell a house and you're not even allowed to sell the house because you don't have legal authority to do so. You can't access the bank account. And by the way, even if you could access the bank account, you really don't have the legal authority to withdraw money from that bank account because that is not an individual's money. That money belongs to the estate. And until the court orders a release of that money to be distributed, that money stays there. And if you take that money out and you're able to access it and use it for your own personal expenses, that's when you get in trouble with the court. And you mentioned about, wow, you need money to even pay for a lawyer. And so that's where we tell everybody, and you guys can help who are watching this podcast to let people know the Probate Cash exists, because I did say that it was risky and our transactions, and you correctly said, well, risky for Probate Cash. And yes, it is, because we will actually help people. We will advance money to beneficiaries of estates at the very beginning of the process, before the probate's even filed. We will give them an advance for the purpose of hiring a lawyer to open up the probate to get things going. That'll help the lawyer, of course, because we'll advance money to that potential client and have that potential client authorize us to pay money directly to you, attorney. And then you have the money to open up the probate process. Now, we, of course, want to make sure we're not crazy on our end. We want to make sure there's a house that's going to be sold or some assets there that eventually are going to be distributed. But we are taking the real risk that a will could be challenged by somebody, or that a will could later be found if they thought there wasn't one, or that there could be claims that are filed. And the claims could totally wipe out all of the assets of the estate and leave the beneficiaries with nothing. And so when we provide an advance to a beneficiary, the terms of our advance are called non-recourse, meaning that if there turns out that there's not enough money to the beneficiary from the estate to repay us, we don't have recourse against the beneficiary. We don't have recourse against the estate. We don't have recourse against other beneficiaries. And so we don't get paid back. And so that is our risk. So we try to make the best decisions at the beginning. We try to underwrite as well as we can. And hopefully if it goes well at the end of the day, and by the end of the day, I mean potentially a year or more down the road, we will get paid back the advance plus the fee that we charge.
You're waiting along with the beneficiaries if you even get paid. Marc, what is your process? Let's pretend that I'm someone who rings you up and says, I need some help. I got to have some money. Marc, can you help me? Tell me a little bit about what you would do for me.
So at our company, we have several funding executives who often talk directly to our beneficiaries. We have a full staff of underwriters that have the ability through Lexis and Westlaw to go into the courts and pull any probate case files so we can review what's out there. A lot of it depends on when you're coming to me. And so if you're coming to me before a probate case has been opened up and you're just learning about this whole world of probate and need money to hire an attorney, we would have a conversation and say, okay, when did mom pass away? Was there a will? Do you have any idea what mom owed? Is there money in a bank account? Is there property that's going to be sold? If there's none of that, we are going to say, sorry, it doesn't look like we can really help you. But if there's a home that's going to be sold, which usually is the case, as a home or cash assets, we'd say, okay, you need to find an attorney. And we have a whole bunch of lawyers that we can refer throughout the country. But at the end of the day, it's always beneficiary's case, and the beneficiary should always feel comfortable hiring a lawyer that you feel comfortable with. A lot of people come to us 9 to 12 months after the probate case is open and just say, hey,
Wow.
it's just taking so long. And, there's an opportunity for me to buy a house, or we're trying to sell the house, but we're just getting lowball cash offers because we need a new roof. Can you guys advance us money to get a roof? Because of the roof is going to make the house sell for $150,000. And so we have through each stage, and we would ask you to fill out an application. We have very easy online applications to let us know everything about the estate that you can think of. And we would also, on those calls, probably talk a little bit about the probate process that you're going to experience and how it works, and try to manage your expectations of what the probate process is going to be.
Right. Do you have to be the executor or the administrator in order to apply for probate cash?
That's a good question. And the answer is no. We know the executor or personal representative is the one who has the legal authority. We only enter into a contract with the beneficiary who needs the money. Sometimes the beneficiary who needs the money may also be the personal representative, but you can have people who don't like one another, who don't talk to one another. And in fact, people contact us and say, well, I don't know what's going on with this whole probate process. My sister is the executor and she and I haven't talked in 20 years. And then I try to call her and ask her when I'm getting my money, and she doesn't ever return my calls. And then I call the lawyer and they never return my calls. And a lot of people don't understand that the probate lawyer only represents the estate. They don't represent any individuals, including the person who's the executor. And so the executor gets to talk to the attorney, but really only in the legal capacity as executor, not in their individual capacity.
Right.
And so people don't always understand that. But so we enter into the contract with the beneficiary. And what our process is, after you've signed a contract with us as the beneficiary, you are effectively assigning a portion of your inheritance. And so let's say that we think that you're going to be getting $100,000 inheritance. You may be assigning $25,000 of that 100. And so what we do then is with that $25,000 inheritance, we actually file that assignment of inheritance with the probate court. So it's not our contract, but just the fact that you're assigning $25,000 of the inheritance. And now it's with the probate court, meaning it's also with the estate attorney, the probate attorney. And the personal representative will see that you've assigned a portion of your inheritance, because at the end of the process, it's the personal representative who will likely be the person cutting us the check for the repayment of your advance, because the personal representative has the fiduciary duty to everybody in the estate, including us, to make the payment.
But that payment does not come out of everybody's, like all the beneficiaries are not giving a portion of theirs away in order to cover that 25,000. That's just coming out of the one beneficiary that went into that agreement with you.
Correct. No other beneficiaries are affected adversely or otherwise by another beneficiary needing an advance. They don't have to sign any documents. They don't have to be called, talked to, or anything. This is just a contract between us and the other beneficiary. So a personal representative at the end of the day, they have a duty. And by the way, they get paid for that duty. They get executor fees, usually mandated by the law in whatever state. And so they get fees for acting as executor. But when the court orders the assets be distributed, they're going to be writing a lot of checks. They're sending a lot of wires. They'll be sending money to beneficiaries. They'll be sending money to creditors. Then we send money to us, and we're not formally a creditor. We don't file a creditor's claim. We're just a party that's owed money, and we file that with the courts. And the court at the end of the day could determine whether or not we should get repaid if somebody objects or if there's an issue. And so going back to, or other beneficiaries affected, let's say the person who assigned $25,000 of the 100, well, let's say that during the process, it turned out that there was a creditor's claim that was filed, and it turned out there were two more beneficiaries that we didn't know about who were going to get paid. And so at the end of the day, our beneficiary who assigned $25,000 to us is only going to be getting $15,000. Well, we'll get our $15,000 back. Our $10,000 shortfall is just that. It'll be our $10,000 shortfall. We won't be coming to any of the other beneficiaries to say, hey, your brother over here owes us $10,000. You need to pay. That's not how it works at all. And it doesn't affect the timeline either of the estate closing. All it really does, if you're another beneficiary or a personal representative and you have that one or two of your other siblings are calling you nonstop for money, what we really do is we can try to make those phone calls stop.
Right. I like what you said the other day, that you help people breathe a little easier. You take the heavy questions of how am I supposed to pay for all this stuff, whether it's their personal stuff, what I'm hearing, or the estate itself. If the estate needs to be maintained or the roof repaired, the grass watered or whatever, so that it will even show nicely for the MLS. So this can be personal things or the estate things. Do I need to have good credit for you to approve me?
That's a great question. And the answer is no, you don't have to have any credit. So it's really important to distinguish our business from other businesses. We are not lending money. What we are providing, again, are these non-recourse advances. We are purchasing, not lending against, we're purchasing a portion of somebody's inheritance. And therefore, there's no interest rate involved. There's no credit check involved. At the end of the day, we charge a fee. We get paid that what we've advanced, and we get paid that fee based upon when the money is repaid to us. And as a result, we really don't care whether you have good credit or bad credit. What we care about is that you are going to be inheriting assets.
Are you like those check cashing places that I've seen where I can take my paycheck and they will give me some money back if I give them my paycheck? Are you like that?
No, we're in fact, we're sometimes misunderstood by that. But unlike the cash checking stores, that business works because you're giving your employer information to them. And if you don't pay back, they actually can take the money directly from your employer. And what happens is they're very difficult to get out of. Once you get that first advance from a check cashing store, that means your next paycheck is going to be even lower. And if you couldn't live on the last paycheck, it's going to be harder to live on the next paycheck and the next paycheck after that. And one thing that, maybe it's my legal background, but my goal is to get people money, make sure that there will never be a misunderstanding after you've received that money. I draft contracts that do not have much legalese in it. I have them so ordinary people can understand what's in the contract, what our repayment terms are. And then because I know people who also need money badly, sometimes don't even take the time to read the contracts. So what we also do is we do a recorded call with our customer. And we tell them this call is being recorded and we go through the repayment terms, make sure they understood it, make sure they weren't on medication, the whole 9 yards. We have a recorded call that also makes sure that they understand our transaction. So entirely different from the cash checking places. Not to mention that to go to a cash checking store, you need to have someone had issued you a check. And so you probably had a job of some kind. To do business with us, you don't need a job. You just need an inheritance.
Can you give us a story of a recent case that you've had, or maybe an unusual case?
Sure. Our usual one is people who need money to get through the probate process. And we'll do advances as small as $5,000. We'll do advances as high as $500,000. And we could do even more if we know that the assets are still going to be coming through the estate. We have no minimum of advance that we can do. Some beneficiaries have a house that they wanted to buy, and they were waiting for the inheritance money to put down the down payment. They don't want to lose the house. And we saved people from losing what was a really good deal in their house. And 2 years ago, the market was skyrocketing. If you had a house under contract and if you didn't execute on it, well, that house was going to be $25,000 more the next day.
Right.
And what we've done is helped folks, and a person even in Florida who had a house under contract, same thing. And we worked hard to get the advance and had it paid directly to the closing agent so the person could close on the house. They got the down payment in, and we gave them even a little bit more money for the closing costs and to get some furniture in because they were expecting the inheritance to be able to pay for that. So we were able to do that, and they were able to get the house that they wanted to get and then get it for the price that they had agreed to in a market where 6 months later, their house, they wanted to sell it, but it was already worth $50,000 more than what they paid.
Right.
That is, that's a great story to have because you also had somebody who wasn't needing the advance just to make ends meet. They really had a plan. And that's another thing. If we see that somebody is coming back to us for more and more money, which we do, people often come back for a second or third advance, and that's fine. But if we start seeing some issues going on or irregular issues, then we will put a halt to it. Just a pause, want to make sure everybody's okay and the money's being used for the right reasons. The more upfront, more transparent we are, the more it works for everybody.
And the people that you want to help in the future. You can't help anybody else if you don't keep an eye on what you're doing today, right?
Yeah. And one thing that's rewarding about it is I never really put too much stock in Google reviews and that kind of stuff. But we do have a marketing guy here who's fantastic. And he does remind our folks, that is important. And when I see some of the comments, all the positive reviews, we have the highest reviews out there, the ratings that are used, but it's the comments that are fantastic. Our customer service is great. We're not judgmental. We know people are coming to us in a time of need, and that's the time where empathy is required most.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I like referring people to you, Marc, because when I refer people to you, I know you're going to take good care of them. And that's a reflection on me and the business model that I have, right? That's super important to me. Thank you for doing that.
Sure.
What's a surprising thing that's come up for you in this?
I think on our website, you can see a TikTok influencer who works in hospice. She never heard of the probate process, let alone our company. And she'd been working in hospice for over a decade. And she'll tell a story. I think it's on our website, probatecash.com. So it's just unbelievable about that. That did not exist when I was in law school. And so for probate, sometimes our customer may not be a beneficiary of the estate. So as you ask, what's a little bit different? Here's something that's different. I was sitting at my desk and I got a phone call and we thought that it was just a beneficiary because those are the people that we do business with. Or are you a beneficiary? And she said, no, I'm not a beneficiary. And that's my problem. I should be a beneficiary. And I have a lawyer and I'm challenging the fact that I'm not a beneficiary. And there's a lot of money in this estate and I'm owed a lot of it. And so I said, wow, that's interesting. And there was a lot of money in that estate. This is a whole new world for us. But this is a person that needs money to live, same as a beneficiary would. But instead of being a beneficiary, now, in order to get money from the estate, they have to win a civil lawsuit or a settlement. And so we've taken a look at that case. And in different instances, we've decided to say, okay, we're going to give an advance to somebody who's not a beneficiary of an estate, but whose only way to pay us back will be if they receive a settlement or a judgment that allows them to get money from this.
Wow. That's fascinating. I would have never thought about that. How long does it take for you guys to decide that I can have some money? Like, how soon could I have money to work with?
Okay. So that's a great question too, because we know everybody is looking forward to the money. The earliest is same day.
Wow.
So if the probate case has been filed and the estate attorney will talk to us, which often is the case, the probate attorneys usually will talk to us and confirm what we're seeing in the public records. We have been able to give an advance in the same day. Our goal is to have it within 1 to 3 business days to get the money out. You could spend weeks underwriting some of these probate cases. Now we have professionals and we know what we're really looking. And so at the end of the day, what we just want to know is, are we more likely than not to get repaid because there's assets in the estate and those assets are due to the beneficiary who's contacting us? And if the answer is yes, then we're ready to give an advance. And so it can be very, very quick turnaround process.
That's awesome. So if you have a soon to be client listening and they need money quickly, what is something that you would advise them to have when they call you? What information are you going to be asking from them?
Oh, sure. That's a good question too. If the probate case has not been opened yet, and so they're just learning that one needs to be opened, to the best of their knowledge, what are the assets that are with the estate? So is there that house? And if so, is it going to be sold? Are there bank accounts? And then sometimes they may not know the answer, but are there beneficiaries to the bank account or is it to the estate? So our business is important that we need the money to go through the estate. And so, for instance, like a life insurance policy usually has a beneficiary to it. If I pass away, my wife is a specific beneficiary to the life insurance policy. That goes straight
Okay.
for her. Bank accounts, likewise. So when you open up a bank account, there's often something on the bank account, a line that says, who's your beneficiary in case you pass away? And if you write down my children and you write down their names, then your bank account, when you pass away, is not going to be part of the estate. It'll go straight to those people. Now, if you didn't write anybody down or you wrote down estate because you weren't sure at that time, then it becomes an estate asset. So the more we know, the better. And you may not know if you're not the personal representative yet. Now, a lot of the people who come to us are beneficiaries who do not know what's going on in the probate case. They may not even know the case number. If you know the case number, that's great. Certainly, because of our excellent staff we have here, if we really just have the name of the person who passed away and where the probate case is or where did they pass away, then we can most often quickly find the case, review the case, confirm whether we're talking to somebody who is indeed a beneficiary or who just thinks they're a beneficiary, and whether or not they're going to be entitled to an inheritance. And so we can get that information usually within a day or so. The more information they have, the better. But we understand that a lot of people that we do business with are coming to us because they don't have the.
And even if they are the personal representative, they may not have done the inventory yet to know what the assets are either.
Sure. So it could be that early. Now, we did talk about folks that you mentioned, well, what if the beneficiary wants an advance to put the roof on or do something to make the property cleaner? What we've seen there is one beneficiary enters into our contract to take the advance, but that beneficiary, whether it's the personal representative or somebody else, should be advising the estate attorney that, hey, I spent this money, I got this advance for the purpose of the estate business, and that's an
Right.
expense to the estate. And so I'm
Right.
submitting this. So if I assign $50,000 of my inheritance and there are 4 beneficiaries to the estate, I'm making a claim of $50,000. That should be split $12,500 each with my other beneficiaries as a claim. I'm not going to eat that on my own.
Then hopefully everybody benefits from the new roof and the higher price. So
Yeah,
they would all, it shouldn't be carried by one person for sure.
that's absolutely the idea. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. What about a trustee? Are you able to do some work with trustees too, or is that a different thing?
We do a very similar process. The trustees are in the same position often as the personal representative. They're getting phone calls from the beneficiaries of the trust. When am I going to get my money? And we do a very similar underwriting process. We review the assets, make sure that the beneficiary of the trust will indeed be receiving that beneficial interest so we get repaid. And we'll do a transaction as well. We'll make sure. Now, in those transactions, we do talk to the trustee. We want the trustee to be involved in the transaction, know that we're paid back. We ask the beneficiary to sign an irrevocable letter to the trustee saying, please pay Probate Cash the money that's owed. And we want the personal representative to acknowledge that they're going to do that. The trusts are a little tricky because most trusts have what's called spendthrift language in the
Yes.
trust. And the spendthrift language would say that the beneficial interest is not assignable. So we would ask the trustee and the beneficiary waive that language for the very limited scope, limited purpose of us getting repaid back. But we do those transactions all the time.
So it's interesting listening to you talk about beneficiaries getting, say, the life insurance or the bank accounts directly to them. In Texas, a podcast recently that went out was an attorney talking about different ways that we can avoid probate in Texas. And those were some of the things. You can have your life insurance, have a beneficiary. You can have a car, have a beneficiary. You can have the house transfer on death. Basically, all these big things that the average person has can go to beneficiaries and essentially avoid probate. But in your case, those things would not work in our favor if we needed probate cash. Is that what I heard you say?
Well, it wouldn't work in our favor. It doesn't mean that there's not a house that's going to be sold or other assets, but it would mean that asset that has a beneficiary would not be counted as an asset for the estate. It goes back to the importance of estate planning. And often people don't do estate planning for various reasons. I don't have an estate. What's an estate? But they don't realize there's a house there. There are some assets there and cars, and it does make things much easier to at least have a will.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons as a teacher at heart for me to educate people on topics like this, because we're not familiar with the language. And I think so much starts with the language and what we talk about. So even the term assets is something most people don't throw around. But you mentioned a car, an RV would be an asset. If it's not completely depreciated, it's considered an asset. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would just say what am I getting and what do I owe? And if there's something that is in the category of what I'm getting, that would probably be an asset, and what's owed would be a liability.
Right.
And that's, assets. You're right to bring that up. People think of assets as just money, as something liquid and not the cars, not the house. But
could be jewelry. I heard about one case, I think it was in Florida even. Somebody had a huge Lionel train collection. And nobody knew what can we get for these Lionel trains. And so they had someone come and do an appraisal. And I think it was $20,000 worth of Lionel trains.
There's baseball card collections, stamp collections. And, usually the collections aren't worth a lot of money, not nearly as much as mom thought they were, dad thought they were, but sometimes they are. And I want to also be a one-stop shop. And I think realtors do the same thing, right? So we have appraisers. We have also people who clean out the houses, probate attorneys. We have notaries. We have just about anything that you can think of that can help. And so it's not too much to bear. We can figure this out together.
Right. And one of the things I love about, you've touched on it before, you just reminded me again, but by having a network of trustworthy people that we have vetted and that we know and we can refer to one another. We're not carrying people ourselves, but as a group, as a network of committed people that are empathetic and compassionate and service oriented.
And that network of friends and professionals is so important. And there's an old saying at my college library that the half of knowledge is where to find knowledge. And
that's true.
Finding knowledge, and that means people who know how to do things. That's one of the most important aspects. Who do you surround yourself? Who are your advisors? Who are your friends? And if you can be in a position where you can pick up the phone and make a phone call, and that leads you to a lot of experts who are trustworthy and fair, that is incredibly important.
Yeah, it really is. And my goodness, when we're talking about what you're doing for people and loaning thousands of dollars, if they need that kind of support, they can really get into trouble if they went to the wrong kind of person. And you mentioned, just to reiterate that the attorney knows everything, the judge knows everything. So everything is above board. There's no meeting people under the bridge at midnight and doing any shady, scary things going on.
If somebody wants to meet us under a bridge at midnight, I guess we would, but the results of that meeting are still going to be filed with the court and given to the estate attorney. So at the end of the day, everything is going to be very transparent.
Yeah. What's an unusual case that you guys have worked on?
Oh, gosh. We've had homes that were the asset that we were relying on to be sold. And that one time it burned down, the whole house burned down. And, you're like, wow, that's not good for anybody.
That's not good. That's not good.
You start learning more things. And you say, all right, well, the insurance is going to come in. And is there insurance? Once the house is paid for, it's not required to have insurance. And,
right.
So is there insurance, or what's the value of the land? But interestingly enough, a lot of the homes that would be sold or in a good market are just going to be knocked down anyway. The home was built in the 50s or 60s, and whoever buys it wants it to be a 2024 home. So they're going to knock it down and the fire did the work for it. So that's unusual. We look for a way. One of the things that I've been in this industry for a long time because I want pragmatic results. I'm not trying to make things too difficult. I want to see is there an asset? How do we get paid? And, if I can talk to the right person and get the right comfort level, yeah, I'm willing to try things outside the box.
Nice. Marc, how can people find you? Where can people find you online?
First, my name is Marc Harris, and my email address is Marc, M-A-R-C, at probatecash.com. So there's my email. My direct office line is 561-476-0018. We have our website is probatecash.com, all one word. I certainly encourage you to browse our website, and we have some informative webinars, and you can see some of the folks that are there and pictures of who you're dealing with. I always find it's important to put a face to a name. I'm on LinkedIn, Marc Harris. I'm not really on Facebook that much, but I am on LinkedIn, and certainly email me, and I'm very responsive too. I'm a big fan of getting back to folks, even if I don't have an answer.
I agree. Is there something that you would like to say to my clients? Most of my clients are going to be the average person that's trying to figure out how to pay for their probate case and how to juggle things. The economy's tight right now. What would you say to them to encourage them where they are?
First and foremost, don't be shy about talking about money. It is a very important life skill to have. So that's first and foremost, talk about it. And you can call and talk to us and talk about the situation. What are the steps that are required? How do I go from where I am now to seeing what it could be a year down the road, seeing it through? And how do I get something that looks so overwhelming to be manageable? If your clients are looking to sell a house and need money quickly, that's why I really want to say pause. Just take a pause. There's always going to be somebody that'll buy your house on the cheap. Take a deep breath, see what we can do to help so you get a fair market value for your home. We can help. We see it. We do it all the time. We provide information, and your clients should feel comfortable to contact us, comfortable that all the questions they have are good questions, or that we understand why they're asking these questions. When you're in a business, when you're giving money to people who really need it, we understand we're not just giving them the ability to access cash. You're playing bartender, psychologist, whatever. You're helping people through difficult moments. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know that, then you shouldn't be in this business.
Right. Love it. Marc, thank you so much for your information and your time. Thank you for all the preparation that you've put in to help your clients up to this point, and for what you do so quickly to help people. You really fill the gap in a need that's so important. And it's not for everybody. We've talked about that. It costs money to borrow money, especially when there's risk on your part. You don't get paid back every time. And so you need to be compensated for that. And it's super important. And obviously your reviews are top notch. And so people are getting what they need from a very upstanding company. And I appreciate you doing what you do.
Well, thank you. And I assure you the feeling is mutual. This is, the whole process takes a lot of different professionals, and with all the right similar values, it works when everybody's on the same team. And that's with also the eye on helping the customer who really is the most vulnerable at that time.
Exactly. Thanks so much. I really enjoyed having you on the show today, and I'm excited. I hope lots of business comes your way and we get to help a lot of people together.
Thanks, Sherry.
That's all I have for now. New episodes of the Probate Podcast will come out on Thursdays. I also have a free public support group called Houston Probate Support on Facebook. You don't have to live in the greater Houston area to be a member, but I'd love to have you join me there. I'd love to have you join me on any of these platforms, including this podcast, and I'll share the links of where you can find me in the show notes below. I'm looking forward to us connecting. See you next time, and remember, you matter.